Welcome back, listeners, to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Just Aaron and Mary here today. We're going to tackle a very relevant topic for our listeners here as Q4 wraps up and we move into Q1, and that is the topic of reporting. How I'm going to probably title this episode is Why You Should Show and Not Tell. And that's kind of what I want Mary and I to really deconstruct and break down, as you have a performance marketer and a strategist here on this episode, really talking about the nitty gritty. So first thought, and I'll kind of throw the floor over to Mary so you can really talk about this topic, is dashboards. Do you need them? Why do you need them? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think the companies I found who like dashboards usually have a lot of metrics that they're reporting on, and they've reported on dashboards with other departments before. So it's just something they're comfortable with. They're used to seeing them. We were just talking about this before we hit record, but it's also really hard to draw meaning from dashboards unless the numbers are really clear. So, which not all dashboards are. I would say most dashboards, there's at least one or two reports that aren't totally clear. Like you have to do some thinking on, what does this mean? What conclusions can I draw from this? And I think that's where the shortage from dashboards comes, is it's a presentation of information, not an interpretation of that information.
Yeah, I think dashboards is a great place to start because the answer is you need them. You know, I would love to live in a world where we didn't have dashboards, but you need them. How I've always articulated this to others is the idea versus reports and reporting. And sometimes I use the analogy, it's a restaurant analogy, as James and I love food on here, and I know Mary does too, is, you know, simply like when you build a report, you know, that's the entree, the finished entree I'm going to deliver to the plate. It's going to put in front of you as you eat it, and you're going to digest it. It's great. It's simple. You understand it. You're like, this is a good meal. Reporting is what happens in the kitchen. It's all the things that takes to get to these metrics and KPIs over time. And you have to be able to speak to that too, right? This is how we cooked it. This is why, this is why the ingredients are in here. As marketers, we have to get better at that piece, because specifically for performance marketers, you cannot just live in the dashboard of the report and here's your facts and that's it. Because as we know, with marketing evolving here, is the data doesn't always tell the truth. It doesn't have that context. It doesn't have that nuance. That's where reporting comes in, right? And I think that's where we're all trying to unlock it a little bit as we run new frameworks, playbooks, as we talked about before. That's where I'll kind of pass it over to you, Mary, because I know something like demand gen, which you and I at one time were trying to figure out ourselves, has even evolved still, like how we report on that. Do you want to kind of speak more about what Gorilla 76 is doing for dashboards and reporting?
Yeah, so we used to do everything bespoke. So all dashboards, all reports were completely customized to the plan and to the metric. So whatever you were measuring. Now we've kind of moved away from that. So we have kind of a menu of reports we can choose from when we report on things. But that's a lot to do with our new go-to-market strategy. So we have these guardrails in place. So they're very focused. So it's easier to measure those things. But to your point, Aaron, I think what really separates the okay marketers, or just what I'll just call the marketing community, from the top tier, best of the best, creme de la creme, is putting meaning behind the numbers. So I think that's where Gorilla 76, and I know you guys at Proofpoint really shine, is here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I think we should do because of it. And here's the results I expect to achieve. I mean, that alone, just that sentence alone, will set you apart from 90% of marketers out there.
Totally. I think this is what I want everyone to take from this lesson. And again, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. And I heard this from Jay Barron, old founder at Elevate Demand First, is like, what you can do as a marketer is outlearn your competition. And what do we mean by outlearning? Is like not getting too heavy and too deep in the dashboards, and that's your saving grace. It's knowing that data is not customers, right? Customers change. How they buy change, how they think changes over time. So you need to start to build your reports in a way where you can package learnings, you can understand that information, digest it quickly, and then move on to the next thing, right? Because again, data no longer means like this is the truth and we're going to uphold it. Data means like this is the direction we're going to. We're getting positive signals back, right? Okay, this is a good direction here. This is the lighthouse showing us the way. But we still have to learn where to go and what to do and how to do it better. So don't live in the dashboard, right? Build your system to package learning. Got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I don't have really anything to add to that. I think that's really well said. What reports are you looking at moving into Q4? Like, how are you telling your stories?
Story is such a good word, Mary, and that's something I just want everyone to lock on to is everyone we report to, they don't understand the data. Like that's just a fact,
Right.
And I've had so many conversations about this with different people, different roles, different functions. They don't know. So we cannot assume that when we show people numbers that they understand the story. So that is your responsibility as a marketer to lay that story out, to tell it in a narrative that makes sense, compelling way. How I've been doing it recently, and again, here's where I'm like anti-dashboards, get away from the dashboards, is essentially with demand gen or kind of these new frameworks, right? You have to start to build that analysis, that qualitative analysis by showing, not telling. Again, it's not just the data itself. It's taking screenshots of the people reacting to your ad, throwing it on the slide deck, back it up with the data you can get demographically. But it's like those qualitative things, which are just simply me copying and pasting what we see, is so powerful. It's so impactful. I think when we ask the question, like, how should we be reporting now? You can't just lean on the data. You also have to show that qualitative analysis. And there's many different ways and interpretations of how to do it. How have you done it before, Mary?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. The screenshots is awesome. So I think we're talking, for those of you who aren't familiar, with paid social distribution, especially. So if you're going and putting an ad out on LinkedIn, and let's say you're targeting VPs of operations, you can go into that ad, let's say 30 days after, and see all the people that liked it and see if they match that targeting. Are they heads of operations? Are they VPs of operations? Even better, are they commenting? So I always make this emphasis if we're talking about telling the story with my clients is like, these guys took the time to like an ad. Like it says promoted on there. They know it's an ad. They know it's a company, so it's not even a person, to actually decide to like it, which means they read it, they consumed it, and they engaged with it. That's huge and should not be undervalued. Same thing, like 100 times more with a comment. They're choosing to take time out of their day to stop scrolling, consume your message, and tell you whether they liked it or they didn't. I mean, that's so big. And I really, really try and emphasize that. And I think you as a marketer, if you get passionate, and you're excited about that, it's felt at the leadership level too.
Yeah. And we're giving you encouragement there. Is I think doing that activity is going to make you feel like your marketing works a lot better than just sticking with the data. And I think that's important. Another super salient topic with collecting data, and this reminded me because you had a post about it, Mary, it was excellent, is what we should be recording is data in the CRM. Now, if you're a listener, there's a good chance that you do not have access to this or your company doesn't collect it. So that's why we're trying to offer you different ways, but that's a fact. If you want to talk about marketing's impact on the business, then you have to manage up and level up your leadership team to understand why it's so important to collect data in the CRM so we can start to build those data models, so we can build these dashboards that are more impactful, so we can pull that data into the spreadsheets for better qualitative analysis. You have any thoughts on that, Mary, as I know you're just speaking about this?
Like 1 million thoughts, Aaron. This is like, I'm so passionate about a CRM because look, I'm not trying to be all up on my high horse or toot my own horn, but I'm a really effing good marketer and I do my best work when I can report out of a good CRM. It doesn't even have to be the best CRM. It just has to be a CRM that can record the most basic of data that ties back to my strategy, right? And it just frustrates me so much when I'm okay with people who don't know what they don't know, right? Oh, I didn't even know you could do this. I didn't even know a CRM like this existed. I didn't know we could track things like that. Totally fine with the, they don't know what they don't know. What I do have a problem with is when I tell them exactly what I can do and the potential of using a CRM and they still refuse to do it. So I have a really good example of this. I was talking with a company a few months ago, and they didn't want to do a CRM. They didn't want to invest in it because their team is really small, but they get a lot of really high value quotes. So they're in like the hundreds of thousands of dollars for an engineering project. And I said, okay, and they track everything in, I think it was like Dropbox or Google or something like that, something like really bad. And I asked the CEO on the call, I said, okay, cool. So what I could do if I were building a marketing strategy for you is tell you which industries based on the company are your greatest lead to opportunity source. So not only are they coming to you interested to buy your product, but they're actually turning into quoted business and then into customers. So I can tell you which industries those are coming from. So now I can say, I think that we should pull back on oil and gas, just throwing this out there, and hit the gas on food and beverage, because food and beverage, while we get 100 oil and gas leads, only 2 of them turn into customers. We only get 25 food and beverage leads, but 6 of those turned into customers. And all those project values are the same. So it seems like oil and gas is the way to go. I can use the CRM to tell you, actually, you should probably double down on food and beverage, just as an example. And I said, how long would it take you to create a report like that using the system you're using? And he's like, I don't even know where I could start doing that. I said, I can do it for you in 2 hours if you have a CRM. So that's just the difference. The way that I put it in other conversations is the CRM is not a marketing tool. It's not a sales tool. It truly is a business tool. It's the greatest resource you have to create better marketing and sales strategies. And there's my rant.
And I love that you did the rant, because the wild thing is it's 2022 October. If you're listening to this, companies still don't do this, and I don't know why. So let's lean with the idea that people don't know what they don't know. That's what I encounter more often. So again, if you're building your dashboards or you're building your reports in a slide deck, it's always great to talk about, here's what I can observe now. Here's how we should build it in the future. Because again, as we've just said, if you're on an agency side working with a client, your client probably doesn't know. If you're in-house working it up to leadership or other departments, they probably don't know what they don't know. But what you can always articulate, again, this is the idea, you can show, not tell. Let me show you what we have now. Let me show you what you can build in the future. That's a much, much better conversation than going and saying, I'm going to tell you what's working right now with this data. And that's it. And then next week I'll build another report and I'll tell you what's working with data right now. And that's it. It's hard. I think I had plenty of experiences talking to people about using the CRM, and can't change people's behavior, right? But what you can always do, what's in your control, is show your work, right? So I'm going to throw that over to you, Mary, if you have any follow-up on that.
Yeah, 100%. So that's a really great point. And for those clients who don't have a CRM, at Gorilla, we say marketing sourced pipeline is our North Star metric. So that's what we want to be judged on by our clients. And the reason we chose that is to move away from that, lead gen for lead gen's sake reporting. So just here's, 1,000 leads we collected over the past quarter. Cool. You paid us for those. We did it. See you later. It's kind of a depressing way to report, which is why we decided not to do it and why we report on quoted business instead. But there's, like we just said, clients who don't have a CRM. So what do you report on? Instead, we'll go high intent leads, because that's our leading indicator for quoted business, right? So are they coming to your request a demo, book a call, talk to an expert, request a quote? Are they coming to that form, filling it out, and is that a good fit lead? So we'll discuss that with a client. Like, here's Joe Smith, VP of Operations at Bechtel, is this a good lead for you? Is this someone who you want to do business with? And, you hear a big name like Bechtel, and it's interesting because some of our clients they don't have the infrastructure to deal with a company that big. So they'll say something like, hey, actually, that's not a good lead. We actually want to go more mid-markets. We want to do those SMB businesses rather than these giant enterprise systems. So really interesting insights when you go back. So it's basically kind of like you just said, Aaron, showing your work. So what steps did you use to get to marketing source pipeline? Well, we run campaigns. Those campaigns get taken to a landing page or to the website. The website turns into forms. So did they come out and fill out a form? Are they a high intent lead? And then did they turn into opportunities? So going back up that chain as best you can, and always reiterating, which I always do in these calls, despite the fact that they don't have a CRM, is, but this is still imperfect. I still can't make the absolute best optimizations for you because I don't know if they're turning into opportunities or into customers. So,
yeah, I think that's a great breakdown because essentially what you want to do is build a reporting and measurement model that works for you and your business. And we're on the agency side, so we do have to think about how the process applies to everyone. If you're in-house, start with what you can record. What can you start building and putting in your reports? And exactly what you said, Mary, is like, this is not perfect right now, but we're going to go progress. We're going to get there. That's, again, much better conversation than trying to build a report that's perfect, that people are trying to interpret, even though they don't understand the data. Let's go back to that. Is they even don't understand the data anyway. So one of the thoughts I do want us to discuss is reporting frequency, because I think this is another aspect that marketers deal with. And I know in my performance marketing role is I build a lot of reports at different frequencies, weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly. What's your take on it, Mary? I mean, you're a strategist. Like, what do you really need to be successful to understand like what the marketing strategy is doing?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question, actually. We hold almost all of my clients do strategy calls once a month. And I think that's a really good cadence, especially if they've been working with you for less than 2 years. That's a good indicator of, hey, are we getting good fit leads? Are more of them coming in over time? Are they turning into quoted business? So monthly, I think, is probably the best one for short to medium term. So I would say that like 1 month to 24 months. So in that period. After that, so for our longer clients who have been running demand gen, we'll do quarterly reports. And I think that's like chef's kiss gold star is quarter over quarter results. What's your take?
Yeah, again, we have to break down what our industry is, and we're in B2B, even though Gorilla 76 is industrial, Proofpoint is professional services. Again, cool. What we have is very long sales cycles for our clients. So if we're going to report weekly, we just got to know that we're not going to have those North Star metrics, as you mentioned earlier, Mary. That's going to take time. I would much prefer quarter over quarter as well. I think if you are going to do that, you have to get better at documentation and notes in between those months and articulating it. And if you're in-house to leadership and other departments and your peers, and if you're on the agency side, I think that's where you can really lean into the slide deck and get away from the dashboards. Let's continue to build this learning over time, make sure we have those notes and documentation. So when we get to the quarter over quarter report that has those North Star metrics, we understood how we got there and where we can go forward. Another thought I do want to mention is with the industries is think about your effort, energy, and spend in a channel, because I think that will dictate what kind of reporting you need to do. Quite frankly, and when I was in SaaS, we were spending a lot. We could have those conversations weekly because we have a lot of effort, energy, and spend in that channel. So we're going to get a lot more output to really think about it. I'm sure, Mary, your clients right now, my clients too, it's like they just don't have that spend level. I don't think it's necessary to report weekly like that, specifically with like the paid search channel. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it goes back to what kinds of businesses they are too. So with the longer sales cycles, and I'm sure most of your clients are more established businesses, so they don't have the high growth mindset that you have at like a SaaS company. SaaS companies, like, most of them are like, we want $1 billion tomorrow.
Yeah, the growth at all costs is definitely different, and B2B,
Yeah.
it's, we're building relationships, and we're thinking about that sales cycle. How can we improve it, making sure we have marketing at every single touch point. The thought I do want to end on, and we kind of mentioned it earlier, is the idea of North Star metrics. So my thoughts have evolved over time around this, and I'm really getting to the idea that you only need one or two or three, and that's it. And again, I'll give it the common example that we're both probably going to advocate for, which is, again, that high intent form. Over time, am I getting more firmographic fit? Again, those job titles, is it the right industries? Are those individuals filling out that form more over time? That's a great North Star metric for B2B. Do you have any other metrics, Mary, or just any other thoughts about really reducing and simplifying like how much you're tracking?
Oh, heck yeah. So we used to report on, anything and everything under the sun. And now I am so strict with my clients. I'm like, we report on 3 things, 5 things at the absolute most, and only if we absolutely have to. But I would say the average of my clients, we report on 3 things every single strategy call. And those are the only 3 things I'll do at our end of plan wrap up, is like the 3 big reporting things. So that being said, high intent forms is a huge one always. Marketing source pipeline over time is huge. And then the third one is almost always a qualitative measure. So I'll do job title to paid social targeting. So I'll build, workflows and reports that say, hey, we're targeting this audience on social media. Here's how that audience came in over time and actually filled out forms, interacted on your website, maybe even turned into quoted business.
I think if you can do any 3 metrics, those are great. Again, the reality is, if you're a listener, maybe you don't have access to any of those. What I would start with and think about is, 1, what can you record? 2, what is the most impactful of those metrics that you can record? Just start reporting on those. You will just see the impact when you're talking to your clients or in-house with your peers. Our leadership is, again, no one understands the data. So why do we give it all of the data, right? No one wants that. Go back to the whole idea about reporting entree is they just want the entree. They want the meal. So I think that's a lesson to take out of this as well. I wouldn't even improve any of those metrics. I would keep those so you can build to them. I do think the other idea I want to speak to quickly is with vanity metrics. And again, most of the marketing channels and activities like a performance marketer or paid advertising specialist is going to work in is a lot of vanity metrics. I've almost changed my thoughts on those too. Is I think they're okay. I think they're leading indicators of what's going on. I think you should track them, but when you report them to others, push them to those other North Star metrics. It's, hey, we're going to look at these today because that's the best thing we have, right? Talking about progress over perfection.
Heck
But
yeah.
we want to build to this. And I think that's always articulating that. I don't think you have any disagreement with that, but you have any other tips about reporting for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, I have one last tip. This is speaking mostly to my industrial, or maybe similar to industrial, where marketing is just kind of maybe misunderstood or undervalued in your company. You're probably not even asked to report on anything. Do it anyways. Send your boss a report at the end of every month based on whatever tactics you're doing right now. My example is I was charged with email marketing. So I compiled a monthly report of all the changes I made, what the results of those changes were. So do the reporting anyway, send it to your boss, and I promise you'll get, positive feedback. Great. Maybe then it like puts you in a better place within your company. If it's negative feedback, that's even better. It gives you room to improve and potentially report on different things.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And I'll give one that I know, Barry, you and I have done together is, if you need a framework, I think this one works best. Like, here's my 3 observations. Here's the 3 opportunities. As a performance marketer, I'm doing that constantly. If you're in another marketing function, it may not come as natural, but that's what the framework's for, is observe what you're doing. What do you see? Just start there. Okay, how can it get better? Those are the opportunities components. So I think that one's great. Last thought I am going to leave with people.
Yes.
There's not one way to do this. It just will never exist. Reporting will be different for every business, every single person, every single marketing department. Know that. Don't get tricked into thinking there's one report that's going to rule them all, our savior marketing strategy. You have to build it. You have to learn it.
Love that, Aaron. That's awesome.
Perfect. Well, listeners, appreciate you. This was a tactical one with Mary and I. Appreciate that. When James comes back on, we'll do those lofty topics that take us into the void. But DM us, ask us questions. Again, check out Mary's post about the CRM. It's very important stuff. And hey, appreciate you. Have a good one.